Well, good evening. Thank you all for coming out. I hope this meets your expectations. This was very difficult to put together because there is just so much that we wanted to show you and tell you, and there's no way we're going to get it all in. But our main focus tonight is basically on the vision, specifically of Global Hands of Hope. We put those pictures up there to kind of show you a little bit of the stuff that we did and the places we went. But the focus of our presentation tonight is strictly on the Global Hands of Hope and what we saw there. So before we get started with our presentation, why don't you join me with a word of prayer. Our precious Heavenly Father, as we come before you this evening, Lord, we thank you and praise you for the safety that you showed us as we were in Uganda. We thank you for our host, Ronnie and Rita, and the time they spent showing us around. We thank you for all of the leaders and volunteers at Global Hands of Hope that are having such an impact over in that part of the world. Lord, we lift them up to you. We just pray that you would continue to be with them as they are looking to expand, as they are meeting the needs of so many children over in that area, not only the children, but the families. And so, Lord, we just pray that as we look at this presentation this evening, Lord, that you would give us a vision of how we can partner with them and how we can come alongside to help them share the gospel in that part of the world and to lift up these children that they are serving. We pray this in your precious name, dear Lord. Amen. Okay. So we'll see if technology works for us. We'll be in good shape. You know the team, my wife, Pam, and Scott. Where did we go? We went to Africa. The thing that we didn't realize, I didn't realize as we were going over, is how close to the equator we really are. Uganda. Right there. There's the equator. So we are very close to the equator. Gives you a little bit better picture of where we were. This is the Nile River, right in through here. And we stayed right there 3 miles from the mouth of the Nile River. And that's where we began our journey. Why take a vision trip? Hannah City Presbyterian Church here started supporting Global Hands of Hope around 2014, maybe a little bit earlier than that. We started by supporting Global Hands of Hope by collecting textbooks and library books because we heard of a need over in Uganda for the school that they were just beginning. We reached out to Ronnie about a possible, I skipped a couple slides, didn't I? Yep. All right, textbooks and library books. We started taking Vacation Bible School offerings. And I think it was about a year ago, maybe a little longer, when we were doing a foundations class on missions. And Ronnie did a Zoom call with us explaining about Global Hands of Hope. And so after that, we had several people from the congregation asking, how can we get more involved with Global Hands of Hope? How can we help them get these washers and dryers that they so desperately needed? Going the wrong way. So we reached out to Ronnie to talk to him about a possible mission trip, taking a group from our church over to visit Global Hands of Hope and see how we could help them. During that call, it was Pastor Dave and me talking with Ronnie, and he suggested that we take a small group over to begin with. Instead of bringing a large group over to try to do something for them, he said, bring a small group, 3 to 4 people, just to see who we are, what we're doing, and how Hannah City can partner with Global Hands of Hope. So, what is Global Hands of Hope? It's a vision that was established by Ronnie and Rita Nalera back in around 2007. That's when they first had this vision. There's Ronnie and Rita in between us. How about that? It's a Christian nonprofit organization serving in Uganda. This is where Ronnie and Rita live, grew up. We found out this time that Ronnie, actually his grandfather and his father grew up in this area of Bukeka where we went. So what is their mission statement? Their mission statement is sustainable development in poor communities to promote the well-being of the vulnerable children. That's their mission statement, basically a two-part mission statement. Their first inclination, the first thing they wanted to do was to establish safe housing for the OVC. He kept using the term while we were with him, OVC. OVC stands for Orphaned Vulnerable Children. I cannot say that word for some reason. I don't know why.
Just point to me and I'll say it every time. No.
But moving into this area in Bukeka, there was a little bit of a resistance because there are a lot of Muslims in that area. And so they began, the first year and a half or so, they began by just building rapport with the community of Bukeka by digging wells. Here's an example of some of the wells. I believe he said they dug 6 different wells in this community so that people would have good water to drink. What they did just recently is bring in electricity. I think you can see that, the electrical lines here, bringing electricity to the school. There's another picture of the electrical lines that they're bringing. If you look back in the back, there was electricity close to Bukeka, but they had to get that from the main power lines to this small rural area in Bukeka. So they began their mission about 2009 of providing a safe Christian environment for no more than 50 children per year. They would only take 1 child per family because they wanted to lift up all of the different families within that community. It's pretty tough to choose 1 child. So it was up to the family to choose which child would get to come to the school and get an education and be provided for during the next however many 15 years of their life. So it's a year-round boarding school where they stay right on the grounds. They have 3 breaks throughout the year, ranging in 2 to 3 weeks, I think, were their breaks. But throughout the year, they would have 2 to 3 week breaks where the children would go back to their families. But most of the time, it's a year-round school. With that many children, they realized the need for a medical clinic. So they started a medical clinic right on the grounds of the school. They ended up having to relocate that medical clinic after a few years because of diseases and things that were being brought to the school, and they didn't want these diseases around the children, especially during the COVID time period. So they ended up moving that off the school grounds, and we'll show you that a little bit later. They've also begun a farming operation to help supply food, and at the beginning, they also established a church on the school grounds. They were using the school as a church, but they had to relocate that also, again, kind of for the same reason of having people from the community coming into the school grounds with the children around. So this is a picture of the school. As you're driving up to the school, this is what you'll see. All right. So Pam's going to talk to you a little bit about the school now.
I'll let you do this slide.
Okay. Where are we? Okay, lower school.
Okay, first of all, an overall impression. The students, as you saw, maybe those of you that saw pictures before, are dressed so well. They're very clean. Everybody was sharply dressed, including the staff. And it seems like in our culture, we've gotten so casual these days. The way that many of my former coworkers dress for school, which is fine and acceptable for how we dress nowadays, would not have worked over there. I did not see a single woman wearing pants, except for at the airport our entire trip. It was always knee length or so or below skirts, no matter where we were at. In the rural areas, in the city areas, everybody wearing skirts, and then the men were wearing long pants. So that was just a very common cultural thing for them to be dressed that way. The lower school, again, if you saw some of those pictures, some of them were from up high looking down. That's the lower school down in that area. And then the picture that he just showed of that's the lower school there. The upper school is then the part where you're looking from the gate looking up, and it's definitely on a hillside, so they call it lower school and upper school, but their levels of grades also fit with that description. The lower school was preschool. They called it nursery school, and the very youngest ones they called baby school, but that's like 3-year-olds, but so they're not babies. But anyway, beginning at age 3 or 4, and that lower school going up to about age 5. And when we went into a classroom there, let's see here. Yep. Yeah, right there. A lot of what you would expect at that age, a lot of teacher-directed things, a lot of movement. Ronnie was asking them questions because he was taking us on this tour, and they were getting all hyped because he was there. It was the most active group of students we saw the entire day. Again, with 3-year-olds, that's not surprising. At one point, they were reciting this little song, and there was one boy in the back that was just dancing like crazy, and I didn't take a video of it, but it was pretty cute. As you can see from the classroom decorations, they're learning what we would learn here at that age, their alphabet, their numbers, things like that. Everything is done in English. All the instruction is done in English. All the signs everywhere were in English. It is the national language. Now, there are local different dialects that people speak. I think Ronnie said he speaks 14 different languages. No matter where we went in Uganda, he was able to converse with whatever local people, and we didn't always understand it because it wasn't always in English, but it made it very easy when every sign you see is written in English and all the kids are speaking very fluent English, so that made it pretty convenient. The lower school primary was ages about 5 years old to 9 years old. And let's see here, the next picture. Yeah, that was a math class, I believe. And if you look in the background, lots of charts. The buzzword, at least a few years ago, was anchor charts. The things on those anchor charts you would see in our classrooms here too. They had things about math concepts, grammar rules, vocabulary words, all sorts of things, just very common, like if you walked into a classroom here. When they were answering questions, if the teacher asked them a question or if Ronnie asked them a question, they would speak in complete sentences. I mean, just very respectful. And I know part of it was probably kind of a show, because they knew we were there as visitors, but yet you just got the sense that that's just their school culture. It was pretty neat. Upper school then is the middle grades, ages 10 to 12. Here, this was a science lab, and they were working on classification of organisms, like kingdom, phylum, class, and then all the way to genus and species. And that was an interesting thing to see. In the oldest group of the middle grades, the 12-year-olds, that's their largest group of students on the campus. There are 30 right now. And as was mentioned before, they start with 50 students. That's been their best retention of students, is they have 30 at that grade level. So it's their largest class, and they're pretty excited about them being able to begin high school. They have other students older than that. There's fewer of them. I think 19 was the next. And the very top levels, they have 7 that are left out of that original group. So there's various reasons why they do not stay. One of them has to do with younger girls getting married is a fairly common thing, and so they're trying to keep these girls in school to be able to get their education. They're talking like ages 12 and 13 is a common age for them to no longer be in school because they are starting families and that type of thing. So, and then the boys needed to be working at home, some of those kinds of things. But they do have 30 in that middle grade ready to go to high school.
The other thing this picture depicts is the school uniforms. Mm-hmm. And if you remember back to the lower grades, mm-hmm. they also have school uniforms. Yep. Those uniforms are provided by the school. Yeah,
they are made there on site, and there's nice embroidery that's done. They have an embroidery machine that does their school logo and all of that. So, okay, their secondary and high school would be the ages like 13 to 17. And so that's the area right now where those upper grades are meeting. And if you go on to, right here. This is an example of a grading scale in one of the like younger high school type classes. And so if you have 96 to 100%, you've got a D1. I'm not sure what D stands for, but those letters are obviously different than what we're used to. But anyway, it's a very specific grading scale, but what I liked is the affirmations and the things down below it. All candidates should work hard to attain the best grade. Remember, yet not I, but through Christ in me. And just, you saw those kinds of affirmations painted on the wall or on a poster or written by the teacher on the board somewhere, but that was a very common thing to see. Let's see here. In high school, their last 2 years are very intense, and they're starting to specialize by then. They only take 3 principal subjects and 1 elective, and the next step for those that continue on would be university. And they said it's not called college. They don't use those terms interchangeably. College would be more like those upper years of high school that are more intense. University is where they would go next. And most degrees would be 3 years, but for a specialty degree like medicine or engineering, something like that would be a 5-year degree. So those that get to those higher levels of high school often go on and continue. And we met a lot of educated people on our trip, not all working at the school, just all different places. And education is very important. They also have a lot of illiterate people, but I started looking up literacy rates, and theirs looked pretty comparable to the United States, unfortunately for us. But anyway, you could just see the big discrepancy in a lot of ways from those who are educated and those who are not.
And there was a big discrepancy in the area we were in Bukaika, the smaller rural communities, as opposed to some of the larger cities like Kampala.
Yeah. The cafeteria, there were murals on the outside that included core values for the school. Let's see here, there we go. Compassion, humility, respect, integrity, service, teamwork. They've got their Global Hands of Hope logo, Subi Christian School logo, and then Life Song for Orphans, which is an organization that is a big supporter of them, and I don't know what all the...
Right. If people are wanting to give to Global Hands of Hope, they've partnered with Life Song, which is a orphan-type Christian organization, and 100% of the donations through Life Song, if you put on your check for Global Hands of Hope, will go directly to Global Hands of Hope.
So let's see, the cafeteria, in some of those pictures, there were kids lining up to go in, and all of their meals are served there, and that's staff and students. Everybody eats there together. They have 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, and that's porridge that they're eating. That was their snack. It was kind of watery cream of wheat, and there were cups, and so we got to help hand out. So we're standing there handing the cups, and almost all, I would say all of them, I think that I at least handed a cup to thank you or thank you very much. I mean, just without having to prompt them or anything, just like you would like them to do. Yeah.
This is just kind of a picture of where all of their meals are prepared. As you can tell, fire in the hole, you know. That's how they prepare their meals, those huge pots. Most of their meals consist of rice and beans. That's mainly what they eat, 3 meals a day, basically. We'll talk a little bit later about protein, but for protein, they get 1 egg every 2 weeks and 1 piece of meat every 2 weeks. But other than that, it's mainly just rice and beans, root vegetables such as potatoes, plantain, things of that nature.
Let's see, dormitories. There's boys' dormitories and girls' dormitories. And there's an example of some of the dormitories. I think that's a picture of the boys' dormitories. This is the girls' dormitory. The fancy-looking thing at the top, that's mosquito netting. So at night, they would untie that and have it come down over the entire bunk. The place where we stayed also had that, where there was the netting entirely over the bed, kind of onto the floor, so that you're protected from the mosquitoes. The mentors, they don't call them house parents or anything, but they're called mentors at the dormitories. There used to be a ratio of 80 students to 1 mentor. They've been working on that. It's now 40 to 1, and their goal is 12 to 1. But these mentors, they have 14 certified social workers as mentors for these vulnerable kids. And that is just, I told a friend of mine who's a social worker about that. She said, 14 in one place? I mean, that's just unheard of. Our big, huge schools have 1 or 2 social workers for the entire school population. And these are people that are with them during the night, during the day when they're not in school and all of that. So that was pretty impressive.
Right. And some of the teachers also are mentors, so they will stay with them in the dormitories and things in the evening also.
So there's no break. So, they're with them 24/7 pretty much. Let's see here. And they were trying out a new format, and they'd only been doing it for about a week, but it seemed pretty successful. They are starting to do mixed age areas, like each of those areas with the older, like we were in a girls' dormitory at the time talking with some of the girls' mentors, the older girls with the younger girls, and that seems to be working pretty well so that the older ones can help with bath time and they can help with some of those things, and it's not all up to the one mentor that's in charge. And that seemed to be working pretty well, and it also helps as far as a family unit, it would be more similar to an at-home situation where you've got older siblings, younger siblings, so it would help with that kind of a relationship. And it's teaching the older girls, how to set an example and how to be responsible for others and that type of thing. So let's see here. The last one is the library. When we were collecting books to send, and we collected donations to help Christ Church send over a whole big shipping container of books many years ago, the library wasn't even built yet, and now this is an amazingly lovely library. Lots of books. I was hoping to be able to find one and open it up and have it say Farmington Central Elementary or something, because we did send a number of discarded books from there, but they had blocked all of that kind of stuff out, I guess. I didn't find any, but I recognized a lot of titles. It looked like if I were to walk into the school library in Farmington, there were a lot of very common books.
The other thing, one of their missions is to assist the community and build up the community. They have also established a library in the community where they have brought a lot of the books to the community. I don't think we have a picture of that, but
I think that's it.
okay, we talked about the school itself and the different levels that they have, and how when they first started, they would add one class every year. So as the first class would move up, they would bring in another set of students. And so, like Pam said, the first class that started, out of the 50 that they started with, there are only 7 left. But over the years, about three or four classes below that, they have retained 30 out of the 50 so far. So their retention rate is getting much better. And like Pam said, the reason being is going back to help on the family farm and that, and also for the young girls, they tend to start getting married at around 13 to 14 years of age. And so that's a draw when they go back home on those breaks from school, and they see friends or neighbors that are married now and starting to raise a family. They're wanting that family, so they leave. So, like we said, they started a medical clinic because of the number of kids that they had and the issues that were happening there. What they found was it was originally supposed to be just for the school kids, but families started coming, families of the kids who were at the school. Their other children would get sick, and so they would bring them to the school to get some medical attention. And like I said, especially during the pandemic with so many sick people coming, they wanted to kind of keep them away from the school children. So they relocated off campus. They moved to Bukeka, and we'll show you pictures here of the medical clinic, but it's kind of on the main drag through Bukeka. And they see about 500 patients per month. So this is a picture of the actual clinic.
That ramp there is the only accessible type thing that we saw the entire time, as far as anything that would be accessible for a person in a wheelchair or with any other kind of physical disabilities. It's the only thing we saw the entire trip.
Right. This clinic is staffed 24/7. It's staffed by nurses and PAs. Oh, there we go. This is where the people who staff this clinic live. This is the housing that they have for them, so that they live right on the grounds. This is right next to the clinic. The clinic is right to the right of this. This is the PA, the physician's assistant, that basically oversees the clinic. What you see here in the back is the medicine. They keep keep their medicine right there. They also have started a dental service, made this available to the people of Bukeka once a week. They'll have someone, a dentist, come in and assist. There's a picture of the dental chair that they just recently acquired. They also recently acquired a sonogram machine. A lot of the people that they see are for pregnancies, and so they have just recently acquired this sonogram machine. They also run medical camps about 2 or 3 times a year, depending on when they can get usually a doctor from the U.S. to come over and spend a week and run these medical camps. And at that time, what they'll do is they'll go to the clinic and bring doctors from the U.S. over, and just for a week, that's all they do is see patients. This is a typical exam room in the clinic. There we go. There's another picture. And one of the 5 most common conditions that they treat at this clinic: respiratory problems, breathing problems. Malaria is a huge problem over there in Uganda. Intestinal conditions, skin diseases, and worm infestations are the main things that they see with the 500 or so people that they treat every month. Besides the school and the medical clinic, they've also started a farming to help with the school. So I think Scott's going to kind of tell you a little bit about this. I'll try to keep up and not go backwards as much.
If you remember the first slides that came up where you saw Africa and the equator, how hot do you think it is out in there?
Stop, will you get closer to
Oh.
the mic, please?
Are you on?
How hot?
There you go.
How hot do you think it is? It gets down there on the equator.
90?
Okay, so that, good guess. The average high temperature is 85 degrees, and the low temperature is 65 degrees. Now that's the average. It can get up over 100 a couple times like it does around here, but I was really amazed at the temperatures, and that's year-round for it. So right there at the equator, they do have the extremes that we talked about, and if you go farther north, like we're up in the mountains, it gets a little bit warmer up there, a different climate. I don't know if altitude or what, but anyway, that's the weather down there. And there's 2 distinct seasons. There's a dry season and a wet season. And the wet seasons are March through May and September through November. So 3 months of rain, and they average 5 to 6 inches per month on the wet seasons. So they get a good amount of rain for crops and stuff. The dry seasons, in between those two, they get 2 inches of rain a month. So if you figure around here, they get more rain than we do, and it's good growing conditions. This makes it very good for multiple crops. Like they call it maize, we call it corn. You can get easily two crops a year on that. And get different lengths of corn season. And all the other crops that they grow there, coffee, potatoes. Now, I'll go here. Like in a maize, they'll do multi-cropping, and that's like they'll have corn out there, and they'll put potatoes in the middle, maybe tomatoes, eggplants. They're trying to get the best use out they can out of the whole land by multi-cropping like that. And if you remember seeing the cafeteria pictures where the kids were in there getting their food, their goal is to supply that food for those kids, and they don't have to count on outside help. Now, this is just starting up, and if you can see how they've done their schooling, you know they're gonna get there.
Yeah.
They're pretty aggressive in this, and,
With the crops that they grow, these are the crops that we saw while we were there. Maize, coffee, potatoes, cassava, tomatoes, bananas, plantain, pineapples, eggplants, sugar cane, and rice paddies. Now, not in Bukeka, but when we were driving from Bukeka to Mbali, we saw rice paddies where they were growing a lot of the rice. I think we've got some pictures of, here's your coffee, maize.
okay, go back to that maize plant. Okay, so if you notice how they grow their corn, all their corn's planted by hand. So they'll be out there with a hoe, just popping a hole in, throwing some seeds in and covering, and they do their whole fields that way. And you can see it's kind of scattered, but they also have up to 5 seeds per hole. So that's just the way they've done it. And this is a test plot that they've been planning out there to see what they can do to improve the growth and things. And then also there'll be, has this one got any interseeding? Yeah.
You got a little bit over here.
Yeah,
We didn't get a good picture of it, but.
Yeah.
Oh,
So their eggplant's one of the things that they eat a bit down there, and then the bananas, jackfruit. There are pineapples out there. I was surprised to see that. So the interplanting of those crops, when I was up there, I was trying to talk to them about how we plant here in rows and spacing apart. So they had a test plot out there, you saw the picture of it. I challenged Peter there to plant some in a straight row, just spaced out certain apart, like we do, and then do it compared to his. And he said he'd take on that, but that's the kind of ideas that they're looking for, is help them to improve. Now, their seasons are different than ours, and rain and everything, and they got good soil. So I think it would work on our side, but they just want information and help them show how to improve. They don't want us to come over there and do it. They just want us to help them. So,
here's another. You see, in between the maize, you've got kind of a root crop there growing of some sort. I'm not sure if that's cassava or if that's potato, who knows? I forget.
in the back, there's plantain trees. And,
Plantain.
yeah. So they've got, well, I got acreage coming up here, don't I?
Yeah, there we go. Small plots.
So you saw those pictures. An average, Ronnie was saying the average size of a farm is anywhere from 1/8 of an acre to an acre. So you see that to get all this different kind of stuff in there, you combine it, you put it where you can. You know, those banana trees and plantains take some room, have to be there a while, but that food that they're coming off there is to feed their family. And if it doesn't turn out well, they don't eat. If they get a little bit of extra, like bananas, I know they'll, if we got some bananas out there, they'll put them on the roadside to sell them just to get some money to help pay for crops that they couldn't grow. So these people are out there just doing their best. And
This picture shows an example. This is a typical home with, you know, their crops are right along the side of the home. They tend that, they go out there and they work that.
And I said earlier, like all this work's done by hand. And so it depends on the size of your acreage. You're out there either by yourself, you've got 10, 12 kids there to help. And actually back at the test plot, in the plot back in Global Hands, they have a time frame that their students go out and help weed the fields. To work, help them work, earn their food, and help go out like that. What was I doing?
Farming goals.
Oh, I want to tell you a little story. We had a meeting there and was talking, Arthur is his name. He kind of head up all the stuff, and we're talking about how we did it over here, they can't fathom the size of our farms, I told them I live on a 100-acre farm, 40 pasture and 60, and they thought that was really great. And they're like, how many people does it take to farm that? And they're like, well, just one. Well, but this is the point that he's going to. He says, you've got one person to farm that. We've got, how do you word that? He said, we've got 2,000 people. So, I'm out there on a tractor doing it. They're out there, and they just got all these kids to help. So they're wanting to incorporate these kids to go out and help farm and how to take care of the land. They can take that back to their mom and dad and their families during the breaks and maybe help them understand or improve their situation back home.
This is a little bigger, that other bigger plot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the first one, what they're trying to do is grow enough food per term. So like there'll be one cornfield there that will be mature, and they'll start, since they got the seasons that are pretty even, they'll have another corn. So they'll rotate those and their goal is to have enough food to feed their kids during these terms. And through the sustaining of it, I'm catching up with you here, sorry. All works. Well, okay, so Global Hands of Hope goals, sustain nutritional needs. By doing that, like we said, they're starting up these test plots. And they got 2 guys working on these plots and coming up with different methods. And then those pictures that we had back there with the nice corn and then the real weak corn. And then next one, yeah, that's corn just coming up. They got quite a few weeds in there and stuff. And this is out in the middle of nowhere. We walked up there and some of the neighbors' goats got out in their cornfield, was eating their corn. And there's just stuff like that it's kind of free roaming in the Wild West yet. So they got all this stuff that they have to coordinate and improve their methods of farming.
You talked about that, the test plots that they had.
Yeah, they use, even testing, they say biochemicals, like they'll use ash and garlic, put it down to keep the insecticides, pests away. So they're experimenting with all that kind of stuff, and they're doing biomatter. They're taking all the corn stalks and stuff and putting them back down in the ground, help building up the soil. They do soil sampling also. I was surprised to see that they did that, but these 2 guys that were into it were just starting to do soil sampling with the ground, and it looked pretty good.
Something else that we saw while we were there at the school, we were talking about, they have 2 ag teachers for this school, and they're running this test plot. Something else that they're working on is fuel because they do all their cooking over a fire, basically. Ronnie didn't even know this one when they were showing us what they were doing. But they were trying to make a fuel like charcoal briquettes that we would cook on here in the United States. They were making their own out of organic matter, out of manure, and some paraffin. And they were putting it together, testing it to see how long it would last and how they could use that in their cooking of the foods also.
Yeah, that kind of shows where these guys are going. They've got their eyes wide open looking at anything they can to help improve. They do no-till, of course, with the biomatter incorporated. So some of their needs to keep this school going, now this is calculations they have from what they're making. On the cornfields, they require 20 to 25 acres to feed per 1 term. Now, they don't have that yet. This is what they need to make it happen. And then also, like Fred was talking earlier in the cafeteria, they get 1 egg every couple weeks. Well, the goal is to give them at least one protein per day. But you start talking to those kids, that 500 kids, that adds up really fast. So one of their overall goals is to have 1,000 chickens. That's gonna take a lot, but like I said earlier, these guys, they know how to make things happen. But the goal is that they'll raise chickens up. It takes 5 months for a chicken to lay an egg. So then they're gonna cycle in another, just say they do, 500 chickens, they'll do 500 more, and they'll cycle those through. Because they said their chickens over there only out about a year. After a year, they don't lay any very well. Over here, you can get 2 to 3 years out of a chicken with high production. But anyway, what they're gonna do, then they'll keep doing cycles through, and when they get a year and a half old, that'll be your protein. They butcher them and feed the kids that way. And that's their whole goal, to just keep that cycle going. That'll get them protein of eggs and meat. And then another long-term goal is they want to have some cows. That's going to be a long ways. You got to have the feed to fuel the cows. But they're really into milking cows. They want the milk for the kids. But anywhere they can get more food and more good protein and good for the children is what they're after.
All right. We want to focus on Global Hands of Hope and how they are fulfilling their mission statement. We felt that was really what we were going over there for, is a vision. Is this an organization that we feel is going in the right direction, is worthy of us supporting them and coming alongside? Scott was talking about, a major need for them is farming, so that they can raise food for the 583 kids or something that they currently have over there, plus the staff and everything else. So from their mission statement, we took a look at their mission statement. Sustainable development in poor communities. And then it goes on to promote the well-being of the vulnerable children. So this is what we're focusing on. Are they meeting their mission goals? They started a church in Kampala.
Capital.
This is the capital city, which is about, 30 minutes from Bukeka? 20? Yeah. The roads over there are not very good. We'll see that here in a minute. But they started this church in Kampala, and this is where they started, this worshiping in a tent. This area is in the slums of Kampala. They tore down several homes. This was a very high slum area, a lot of crime, a lot of prostitution and stuff going on. And so they started with this tent back in, this was before 2007, but this is where they worship now. This is their church where Pastor Ronnie pastored for several years before he started Global Hands of Hope and was pastoring the church in Bukeka.
Now his brother is the pastor.
Yeah.
Richmond.
No, Richmond's, no.
Richmond is the pastor.
Okay.
Richard is the...
Okay. So what else, the other way they were fulfilling their mission was lifting up the community, again, by building the wells, digging those wells there in Kampala. That was done to lift up the community, give them fresh water. As you can see here, this isn't a great picture, but the community is using these wells. This is where they get their water. The 6 different wells throughout this community that they've dug. We talked about the power lines to the school. Again, you know, what they did is they started the school on solar power, and that worked okay for a while, but what they found was it was very expensive to replace batteries, and the batteries were not lasting that long. They got 3 or 4 years out of the battery storage, and then it was so expensive to recycle these batteries and to purchase new ones, and they had to pay people to take away the old batteries. And so they felt it was cost effective to actually bring electricity to the school. One of the problems that they had is as they were doing that, some people in the community were taking the wire for the power lines. And so they went to the community and said, you know, hey, we are bringing these power lines to your area. We will allow you to hook onto our power lines and run power to your own home. And that stopped the theft from the thing, because, you know, this was a way for them to improve their homes. So again, what Ronnie indicated was that throughout the several years that they've been in the area, since, what, about 14 years now, that they've been in that area of Bukeka, they've noticed a large change in the housing for the people. This is a pretty typical, the mud huts. Oops. Mud huts for a family, and like we said, the families are very large. They have a lot of children, and so they may have a couple of different homes because of the different families that are there. But what they're seeing now is that people are moving from the mud huts to brick homes. You'll see the mud hut here on the side, but since they've been there, people have started improving their homes to the brick. Oh, I love this house. I don't know why I took this picture, but this just showed someone who had a lot of pride in their home. They got their flowers planted out front, but so what Ronnie was saying is there has been a lot of upgrade in the housing and in that whole community of Bukeka. The other thing that they've noticed and that has occurred since they've been there in that area of Bukeka is the improved roads. We'll show you some signs. This is actually, right in this area is some property that is owned by Global Hands of Hope that they want to build a new church on. There's a road heading down this way, and right down this road is where the new high school is going to be built, right along this road here. But not all the roads are great. This is just a little example of what the roads are like, and during the rainy season, it's even worse. They're hardly passable. The other part of their mission statement is, I'm going to let Pam work on this because I can't say this word.
To promote the well-being of vulnerable children. It's really easy. No. Okay, say it with me. No. Anyway, so yeah, low-cost tuition, room and board. It's $15 per term per child. At first, it was free, and as we know, when things are offered completely for free, not everybody appreciates or cares for things as well as they should or whatever it might be. So they do charge $15 a term, but if a family is not able to afford that, they can work that off, and that's part of how they get labor to help with things. They could go out and work in a farm field for a while. They could go make bricks. They could make the concrete blocks. I don't think it got mentioned yet, but they don't go to Lowe's or Home Depot or anything. They're making their own bricks. They have brick molds, and Fred has a video that maybe we'll show later that shows that. They make their own concrete blocks, so they have this huge area of concrete blocks to use for the new high school. Well, it's certainly not enough for a whole building yet, but they make all of that. So they use some of that as people are working off their tuition. They can be helping the Global Hands of Hope, whatever needs to be done. They do get 3 modest meals plus snacks daily, and we mentioned the porridge, rice and beans, root vegetables, fruit, the bananas. Oh my goodness, yeah, really good bananas. And they're hoping to add more eggs and meat someday. The social workers as dormitory mentors fits with the idea of vulnerable children. These social workers are trained to handle, children that have had difficult lives. And our idea of orphan, I think this got mentioned before, but, we think of an orphan as someone who doesn't have parents. These are children who are being raised away from their parents. So they actually do have parents, and they go home on those break times to see their parents, but that's still considered orphaned, vulnerable children because they're being raised on their own without their families. School uniforms, I mentioned, and if you saw the slides beforehand, you saw a lady sitting with a big smile, beautiful lady with a big smile, sitting at a treadle sewing machine, but then next to that was her daughter with a Singer electric sewing machine that does the monograms and all of that, and so they have a really nice school logo that goes on each of the uniforms, and so they call that their tailoring area, and it was just the 2 of them, but their plan is to increase that and have a room that's going to be bigger where they're able to do that. Faith-based classical curriculum is another way that they're meeting the needs of these children. A classical curriculum is a back-to-basics type approach. Their focus is on grammar, logic, rhetoric. Sometimes it can be referred to as a leadership education because it emphasizes problem solving, public speaking, some of those kinds of things that would grow leadership qualities. And the most noticeable thing, I would say, just as we were visiting classrooms, is whenever a student would respond, it was complete sentences. They would, what we would try to get our students to do when they're answering an essay question or something like that with, say what you're talking about and then explain it. That's just how they spoke whenever they were asked a question. There were no 1 or 2 word answers, anything like that. It was a complete, they were speaking for themselves and putting a lot of thought into their answers, so it was pretty impressive. Certified teachers, as I mentioned, they're university educated and they're trained in this classical education model. I did have somebody say to me at one of the meetings, and I'm not trained in that model, and the person said, well, you're not old, you could come and teach here. It's like, well, thanks, I think, but anyway, no, I really couldn't unless I had training because I've got a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, but I'm not trained in that model, and I would not know the proper approach to do that, so yeah. And also it was nice to hear that I'm not old, not that I thought I was, but anyway. Co-curricular activities, we call them extracurricular activities, but they phrase it differently because they feel that that's part of the education of the child is the clubs. They do have some athletics, certainly not the focus on that we tend to have here, but they feel that that's part of the curriculum and part of the development of the child is these extra activities, so they call them co-curricular activities. And then they do still have an on-site medical office, like the nurse's office. They do still have a place there, but it's specifically for the students and staff. It would not be for outside community members.
Okay, I don't have to say that word again, so I'm back up. Financial stability, where are they? Can they sustain this financially? They are changing their model. or they're trying to change their model to have less dependence upon donations. What they noticed was, since COVID, the number of people who are actually sponsoring students there has dropped by almost 50%. And so it's making it very difficult to be able to meet the needs of the kids. So they're looking at less dependence upon the child sponsors. They're still doing the child sponsors, and they need more people to do the child sponsors, but they're looking at getting away from that model of just the sponsoring of the children. They're looking at getting in some more commercial funding, such as when we talk about commercial funding, we're talking about more farming practices, being able to raise their own food so that they don't have to spend money to buy it. The other thing that they're looking at is they're looking at a coffee business to help another impoverished area like Bukeka up in Baduda, which is a couple hours away from Bukeka. And they're looking at starting a coffee processing business up there because they grow a lot of coffee. There's a lot of small farms that they want to try to help sell their coffee. And so that's what they're talking about, more commercial funding that would go towards supporting the school. We talked about the restructured donation model. And they're also looking at investments, endowment funds that could give them ongoing funds to help in the future. The other way that they're looking at meeting their future needs is the food security, the improved farming practices, the addition of chickens and cows in the future. And they're going to continue the student sponsorship, but have less of an emphasis on that if they can get these other things up and running. Student sponsorship, this is Patience. This is actually a girl that has been sponsored by someone here in the congregation, and so we had a chance to meet her. And this is Yusef, who was also sponsored by someone from this congregation. He's a little bit older than Patience, but so they are still looking at student sponsorships, and this is the ways that we have already been helping out with Global Hands of Hope through student sponsorships. There's several here in our congregation that do sponsor kids. We use the school libraries funding for the books that we shipped over there. And laundry facilities, they're looking, because they're getting so many students over there now and the need for the laundry facilities. We sent over 5,000, I think, from our church to help with the purchase of a commercial washer and dryer for them. This is the building where they're going to put it. It's not fully completed yet. This area is going to be their new tailoring area, and then the washer and dryers are going to go there. I think we got a picture. Yeah, so they're getting ready. They're not quite ready yet, but they're getting close to getting the washers and dryers. How can Hannah City help in the future? Scott's going to go over there for 3 years. Ronnie, from the first minute he met Scott and started talking farming, he has been trying to get Scott to agree to come over there for an extended period of time. And so Scott has turned the table on him, and we think that a better use of our funds is to bring someone from Uganda over here to see because they know their practices over there, and if we can teach them some of our practices here, they can take what they learn here, take it back to what they know over there. So that's one of the things that we feel that Hannah City could be involved in. This Peter, Scott has been in communication with Peter. This is the agricultural teacher over there. This plot is actually the test plot. When we were first there, and I don't know if you remember back to one of the first part of the slides, that corn was only about waist high when we left. Peter just sent Scott this picture this week, I think, and showing how that has grown just in the 2 weeks that we've been gone. The other way we can see that Hannah City could help is to help sponsor a medical team in the future to assist in the medical camps. Christ Church over in Normal has a doctor who goes over at least once a year, and he's always looking for people to go along with him to help in these medical camps. So we have a lot of medical people in our congregation who are interested in doing that, so we figured if we could partner with Christ Church and go over with that, and maybe eventually do our own medical camps at a future date. Where are we? Yeah, this is the charge that they have for their different, and I couldn't read it, so I can't tell you what their charges are, but
That's the only sign that wasn't in English.
that would, yeah. The other thing that Ronnie told us, when they had to move the church off of the school grounds because of the problem with so many people from the community coming in, I don't know if you noticed all of the gates and everything around the schools, but that was a common sight. Everywhere we went had armed guards and gates because we did not feel unsafe while we were over there at all, but every building that they have is protected by block walls and gates. And so they didn't want to be bringing people from the community in there when they're trying to protect the children. So one of the things that they have on their wish list is to build a church off the school property. And that picture that I showed you of the road, that was about a maybe 5-10 minute walk from the school. They have the land for it. They have started raising funds. Unfortunately, they're not getting very many donations for the building of the church. They started raising funds for the church several years ago, and they started raising money for the new high school. They're trying to build a new high school, and they've already got the money raised for that, but they're having trouble raising money for building a new church. So one of the areas that we thought would be something for Hannah City is to help them raise money to at least start like they did in Kampala with just a tent. And then from there, as funds come in, then they can build a block building. The other thing that we can see maybe involvement from the church is through farm equipment. They have no tractors or anything there. Anything that they have as far as construction equipment, they have to rent from Kampala and pay to have that brought out and worked on. So farm equipment. If they're wanting to get more into the farming and raise their own crops to feed their kids, that's an area we think could be something Hannah City could help with. High school building, like I said, they want to build a new high school. They're running out of room where they are now. They're using some of those classes for other grade levels, but for high school, because of the number of kids that they are retaining and getting up into that high school age, they tried sending them to another Christian school, and that did not work out well because they were looked down upon because they came from such a poor area and all of that. So they're looking at building their own high school where they can help the kids there. So while we were there, they started. They rented this bulldozer and started clearing the land for the new school. And that happened in about a day and a half. It's a picture of a truckload of bricks that they're going to use as the foundation for the school. But they plan on having this school building completed by January of 2025. That's not very much time, but
They'll probably do it.
with the way they're going, I wouldn't put it past them. This is the lot. Yeah, this is the lot where they're going to build the church. And it's right down the road from the high school is going to be over in this area over here. But this is an area that they have planned for the new church if they ever are able to get the funds to complete that. The other thing that they're wanting is an x-ray machine for their medical clinic. And they have a room all set up in their medical clinic ready for an x-ray machine if they can raise the funds for that. The other thing they want is additional dormitories. They're pretty much at capacity now, so they're needing extra dormitories. The staff live on the campus, basically. It's a little ways away from the school, but this is staff housing, and they need to build several more buildings for staff housing. And then, we talked about the farm, and construction equipment is on their wish list. This is some tractors that they were looking at purchasing. With Scott's expertise, I think we informed them that probably was not a wise investment for them. And so we'll be looking at maybe helping them find some good equipment. But that was at the other site, the Mbale site, where they're looking at doing their commercial coffee business. Solar farm. They're thinking, this is down way in the future, I hope. But Ronnie, we made this stop as we were on our way to the airport as he was taking us home back to the airport to fly out. He saw this solar farm, and he thought, hey, this might be a way for us to not only make some money for the school, but to supply electricity. Their electricity is not very stable. The first night we were there eating supper about 7 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden, all the power went off in the hotel where we were. And Ronnie explained, oh, just wait a minute, they're just switching over. Every night they switch over their power to commercial power. And so their power and their internet is not real stable, but they're hoping to maybe in the future do more with solar because they have a lot of sunlight down there. The other thing that they're looking at in the future is expanding into this new area in Baduda, near Mbali. This is the site that they've already picked out. This is near the coffee plantations where they're going to be starting their coffee business. They've been given the ground to be able to start building just an elementary school, kind of like what they did in Bukeka. And if you want any more information, there's their website. That basically is it for our presentation. We are open. I know it's running a little late. We were hoping to get through this a little faster, but if you have any questions, raise your hand. Mike's got a microphone, and we can try to answer some questions. If you need to leave, we understand. That's fine. Go ahead and leave, but if you have some questions, we'll be glad to try to answer them.
Hello, I was just wondering, at the medical clinic, is there inpatient or is it just outpatient?
It's mainly outpatient. They do have a
There's a hospital in Kampala.
There's a hospital in Kampala, but this is mainly outpatient.
This is not a question. I just want to say that you have given an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We flew her in from Florida just to be the one that gives us compliments. So yeah, she came directly from Florida for that.
You mentioned that they estimate 20 to 25 acres needed per season, so 100-ish acres. How close to that amount of land are they right now?
They don't have that much land. They've got, I think, 3 different plots out there, and a couple acres per
Couple
plot.
acres of
But in that area, land's pretty easy for them to get it, apparently. Ronnie had no problem saying, we can get the land, we just need the people to do it.
I just was curious, with the children coming from the families to the school, like, you mentioned that orphan means they're at the school, but it sounds like going to the school almost makes them the orphan. So I'm just kind of curious what the situation's like at home. You describe what they have, the stable meal or whatever, but how that's an improvement or...
Yeah, it's interesting. They said there are some difficulties when the children return for their break. Like a child might say, hey, can I use some soap while I wash my hands? Because they're taught, hygiene things and all that, and the parents will say, well, we don't have any soap. And so there are some conflicts like that, but the hope is that as these children become aware of better hygiene practices and better ways to eat and how to do better gardening and farming and all of that, that will have an impact on the family. But they did say that there is some resentment at times, and not all the kids go home. Not all of them have a place to go to, and not all of them go home during those breaks.
the families, like I said, a lot of kids, and as we were driving around, we would see, kids just sitting out in the yard, and so we would ask, do they go to school? And he said, not usually. There is some public school systems around there, but it might be a 5-mile walk to get to school.
Just one more. You said the girls very likely could get married at 12, 13, 14. How old are the boys?
It's a good question. I think older. The main thing as far as the safety with the boys, at least originally, had to do with when there was all sorts of political unrest in Uganda, and safety for the boys as far as being taken to fight in the armies and things like that. They didn't say that that was why some of the boys didn't come back. It was more the need for their work at home and that type of thing. But I'm guessing younger girls and older spouses or whatever. So.
Actually, Scott, you had said when you first came back how ambitious
sure if Ronnie's insane. Not insane. Ronnie's an amazing person. He is full blast all the way in ideas. He hasn't got an idea he's not thinking about.
And he knows everybody.
Yeah.
He has contacts everywhere.
He's connected, but he's into anything. Like, he started talking about 1,000, you were asking about farm size. He would say, I get you 1,000 acres. We just need, this equipment to do it. But you see what he's done. It's just amazing. And I don't doubt he's not going to make that high school go up in a few months. So he's connected, but he's connected to the big guy too.
And I think that's the thing that impressed us the most is how much they have accomplished in the short amount of time. If you think about it, the idea came in 2007. They didn't even start working and bringing children there for a few years, and then a few years after that they started the school, and then the medical clinic, and then the farming. And it's just one thing after another. And what impressed us is Christ is being glorified there. And if you saw the signs on all the buildings and everything else, you can really see. And we didn't put the slide up there, but I took a picture of their Bible classes. And every day they have Bible classes that they go to. And so, it's... Ronnie has a great vision, and his vision is to lift up the Ugandan people, not just in this little town of Bukeka, but the whole Ugandan people. And we were very impressed with the leadership. We met one afternoon with the leaders and asked them these questions.
This was at the school, like department heads and their bookkeeper and their, headmaster and different people.
You have so many different things going on. How can you sustain this? Is this sustainable? And I got the impression that it really was, that they are doing a good job of putting good leaders in place in all of these different things that they're doing, and that it is a sustainable model that they have.
Is there any communities around there that help them at all?
No.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Yes, the question was, are there any other communities around them that are helping them? I would say no, I did not see any. One of the things that, and we didn't show the slides because we wanted to focus on Global Hands of Hope, but in that area, the Muslims are building a lot of mosques. About every 5 or 10 miles, they're throwing up a mosque. And Ronnie was saying, they're coming into these areas, and there may not be very many people attending these mosques, but these nice big buildings that all look the same. And he said, as Christians, we need to be doing the same thing. We need to be putting up churches, different places, so that, we can give people hope, and that only hope is through Christ. And I really think that's the model that he wants to see happen in Uganda.
You mentioned that we'd already sent several $1,000s to help with the washer and dryer, because that obviously struck a chord with our congregation. Is there anything else they need for that project at this point, or are we ready to move on to whatever's next?
I believe that project is pretty well funded. There are so many other projects that could use funding. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to give this presentation, and I'm sorry this is taking so long, but we want you guys, after seeing this, where do you want us to focus? They've got the schools, they've got the medical clinic, they've got the farming area,
Church.
and they're struggling to get a church built. So we want you guys to tell the leaders, we think this is a good mission organization. We want to partner with them. We think we can be most helpful in this area, whether it's farming, medical, school. I mean, we can do all of them. It just, we need the church, we need Hannah City to come on board and say, okay, we really want to sponsor or partner with Global Hands of Hope. And so we're looking to you guys to kind of tell the leaders what you think and whether you think this is something that we want to partner with.
You three were there. Everybody hear me? In your opinion, what do you think is the most important need right now?
Food,
I know it's hard to say, but
Yeah,
if you
no.
just off your
food,
head, let me-
agriculture, food, helping feed those kids. That's, to me, that's.
The agriculture.
That's what I would say too.
The agriculture would go a long ways in helping the school and helping them financially. I would like to see us help them get a church started again. You know, they had a church there. They had to move it off campus, and so I'd like to. I think that he said they could build a church for $375,000. I said, well, we're not going to be able to give you $375,000. That's not going to happen. But we may be able to buy them a tent, you know, for them to start. And that's how they started in Kampala. They started with a tent and worshiped several years until they built. And it's amazing. We got to worship with them Sunday in that church, and it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I would say they're getting started with the agricultural. They got the 2 men there working, doing their test plots, and they're getting that ball rolling. It's gonna take a lot to get the structure and the setup for the chickens, not as much as cows, but that would help them out in their food security. But then like the church, the Kampala church, we went there and they showed us the tent was there over in the side parking lot. And people came in from everywhere to that church. And I know if they put one out there in this community, people out there don't have a church to go to. They'll come, and they'll get just more and more support from the community and raise them up. So those 2 areas, I think.
Do you have just a goal of how much money you'd like to see raised?
Well, no, and that's kind of specific on our part. We don't want to just say, okay, we need to send them $50,000 to do that. No, we want feedback from you guys. We want you to go to the leaders and say whether or not you feel this is a mission that we as a church want to partner with. And that was really the reason for this vision team. It's expensive to go over there. It cost us about $2,700, almost $3,000 a piece. We did this on our own. We did not take money from the church to do this, but we did this because we wanted to come back and let the church figure out if this is something that they want to support. And we do have money set aside in the budget for other people to go over, but we wanted to have a clear vision of what we're going to do if we go over there. And I think that's what we figured out is spending the money for us to go over there. They don't need manpower over there. They have all the manpower they need. They need people to teach them how to do something. And that's why we really fought as a team that bringing someone from Uganda over here for a short period of time might be a better use of the money than us sending someone over there. That's just my opinion. Hang on just a second. Mike, did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say, is there any chance that our 3 missionaries could take their slideshow on the road to different churches in a presbytery and let them know what's going on?
Yeah, we would have to cut it down considerably because this is way
So
too
yes,
long.
any feedback would be helpful. If we were too detailed in certain areas or whatever, that
Yeah.
would be helpful as
I
well.
mean, there
but-
is so much that
yeah.
we left out.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with
yeah.
talking with other churches about it. Jerry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, do we need to have a project? Or would we be better off just to let them decide where the money goes? Because our priorities are different than theirs a lot of times.
Right, and we talked about this with Ronnie, and we kind of let him know that from the makeup of our church, we felt we would probably be more inclined to choose a project and help them complete a project than, just raise them so much money every year. We figured that our church, the makeup of our church was more just for small projects.
I know when we got back, we were talking about the experience, and it was an amazing thing that there's no way we can duplicate it or explain it all. But as I look at everything that we did, everything we saw, I don't feel the need to ever go back. I mean, it was wonderful, but there is no one thing that I can think of that if I went there, it would have a huge impact on them. But in looking at some of these projects, things that we can come alongside here, I can see where, like the idea of the food, the idea of the church, those things are going to have a huge impact. Just for me to go over there, could I go over there and teach for a week or something? Sure, I could, but they've got trained teachers that know what they're doing. That school is running wonderfully. I told the headmaster and Ronnie both, I said, those kids could come over here, you would put them at the grade level of their age, they would do fine, just at least from the little bit that I saw. So, the things that I keep looking at are what would have the most impact for them to help them reach their goals. Helping with the children, and then also raising up the community. And if you look at what that church did for that area that was really depressed, that slum area in Kampala, and the way that it has changed into that beautiful church campus that draws people from all over, that could also happen in Bukeka. So to me, those are things that have more impact than just us going over there or just saying, here's a little bit of money, spend it on whatever. I think they're very project-focused, and I think if we could come alongside, that would help. The website up there, if you've never been on it, that ghoh.org, they have some of these things listed as, sponsor a child. I don't know if washer and dryers are still on there. The high school, there's some different things on there that are specific. Some of the things we mentioned are new since that website is on there. It hasn't been updated, but yeah, they're thankful for whatever, but it's not like a ministry that's in need, like they're struggling and they're ready to go under. It's just how can we help to move them forward.
Where does the manpower come to put all those bricks down, build those walls and that? Do they just come from the community to help?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that's great.
Some hired work, they've got cheap labor, they've got manpower.
I think it's probably fair to say that we're not probably going to actually answer the question tonight. So that's via the website. That's, in fact, Ben just wanted me to remind you all, we've recorded tonight. So you're welcome to go back and listen to it again. It'll be on our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch any part of this you want. You can pray over it. Get some wisdom that you want to pass on, pass it on. We'll just keep the conversation going.
The thing I'd like to add there is, it all goes back to, they're not asking, just don't come over, try to fix things, or they can use our money, but they're really needing the help on understanding the best way. Like, I want to use farming for example. I was thinking, well, this is like back in the 1940s or something, but no, I was thinking my grandpa, he did it by horses. Well, they don't even have it, they're not doing it by horses, they're doing it by hand. So if you guys can think of a way or a good situation, practically that would help them, we can either send that information over or in some way, I was thinking, Arlene was asking me what kind of equipment and stuff like that, but if they had a 4-row corn planter in a small, like, just small antique tractor, that would be building a spaceship for them. Because right now they're doing it by hand. So,
The-
do you have anything?
Yeah, the one thing is, it's very expensive to send stuff from here over there. They wait until they get a shipping container full of donations, and then I think he said it was like $15,000 for them to send a shipping container from the United States over to Uganda. So, you know, when you think about, hey, we've got old farm equipment that's, you know, not being used around here, we could send that over. It's very expensive to do that. And so, you know, Scott has been looking, and he found a tractor that very similar to what they were looking at paying $30,000 for. And as Scott and I looked at it, we said, this tractor's not worth that. You know, Scott found one over in South Africa for $13,000. You know, so maybe that's something you don't have to pay the cost of shipping it from here over there. We can find them something that's a little bit more reasonable for them to get started.
How about like diesel and stuff, how accessible is that for them?
They can get it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, gas and diesel, that's fine.
okay.
They got gas stations like, not in this little area, but you gotta go to a medium-sized, large town
Okay.
to get fuel.
I laughed because when they started clearing the land, he made a call that night and rented this dozer to start clearing the land. And while we were traveling, they were having trouble getting someone to sell them the fuel, and they had to go get it in jerry cans and take it because they wouldn't start clearing because they had to use the school's fuel instead of their own fuel. So he had to jump through several hoops to be able to get that bulldozer even to start working that day. But by the end of the day, they had it pretty well cleared. Okay, Rosemary?
Is there a church in Mochico?
I did not see one. Yes, Rosemary asked if there was a church in Bukeka. I did not see one. It's a pretty large area, and we just saw a small part of it. I did see a mosque there, but I did not see a church. Not saying there isn't one, but I did not see one.
It is a Muslim community.
Yeah. Any other questions? Again, I apologize this took so long. We were trying to keep it to an hour, but we didn't quite succeed. But why don't I close us? Our precious Heavenly Father, we thank you for being with us tonight, for showing us the needs that we can help lift up your name in this foreign land. Lord, we know that there are so many needs all around the world, and yet, Lord, we can only do a little bit at a time. So, Lord, we thank you for Global Hands of Hope, for the impact they are having in that small part of the world. And we just pray that you would continue to show us how we can come alongside and help. We thank you for this evening. We just ask now that you would be blessed with this presentation and how things went and how we can look forward to seeing your hand work in that community. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.